Hello, welcome to the D1 Rejects Recruiting Report, powered by AREN Consulting. AREN educates and navigates the high school coach and families through the Rocky College recruiting landscape. Schedule a free consultation today to see how AREN can help you save precious time and money. Visit getaren.com for more details. Tonight, I'm joined by the man that you've become familiar with on this show, the founder of AREN, Dan Fodrocy. We're switching things up. We're getting right into this thing. We've got a checklist of the most important things the class of 2026 needs to know this spring. Kick off the list for me.
Yeah, this is really big, Kobe. This is really important information because now is critical for class of 2026, and that's for any level, P4, FCS, but especially Division II and Division III prospects. As you look back a year from now, you'll realize, wow, this stuff was on par. This was on point. This is what we want to make sure we follow this checklist. If I'm a class of 2026, there's one thing I'm doing right now, and that's creating a height, weight, wingspan measurement video or pictures at least to share with coaches. It's going to create an efficient recruiting process because they're going to take that information and they might come see you. It's going to drive them to your campus in April and May, which is really everything right now in the process. Listen, if you're not a P4 guy, you're not a P4 guy, but for these Division IIs and these Division IIIs and even some of the FCS, for them to come see you at campus, they need to kind of know what they're coming to see. They want to kind of have some credibility. So you taking a picture of your wingspan, your hand width, your height, your true legitimate height can bring clarity to the process, and that's extremely important. You have to really be prepared for your pro date. So that step number 2 of it is when they come to see you, you got to be prepared. They can come to your campus and you can work out in your gym, or if you're lucky enough with the weather, out on your field. Think about all the NFL guys. The combine starts this week. And then in a few weeks, they're all going to be coming back to their college campuses to see them work out. And you're just more comfortable. Sleep in your own bed the night before. You throw to your own receivers as a quarterback. As a defensive lineman, you might even be working with your own position coach who runs you through your drills. The level of comfort in April and May in the recruiting process can drastically change your process, especially for kids that are going on to play Division II and Division III. And it can also change what you do in the summer, which is critical. I can't stress that enough. You have to make sure your transcripts are accessible. You know, I know college athletics are changing, right? It's for all intents and purposes, the highest levels are minor league sports. I get all that. But for the 90% of us that are going to go on to play at the Northern Michigans, at the UW Eau Claires, at the Grand Valleys, at the West Alabamas, your academics matter. You want to make sure that they can at least access them. I always encourage people, make sure to cover up any sensitive information. College coaches are fair people. They're not going to be putting it out there for the world to see. But if you want to cover up your social security, if you want to cover up your address, kind of redact that and save it in a safe Google Drive, fair enough. But they need to be able to see that, because you have to remember now, prospects, hear me out. They're working in like a salary cap. So if they know that, hey, this Dan Fodrocy is a really good student, he's going to get a ton of academic money, that moves me to the top of the list. So you have to think like that, and you have to think proactively, and you have to make sure that all of your pertinent information, especially your transcripts, are accessible. Competing over DMs. I can't stress this enough, especially right now in 2025, especially for the class of 2026. It's more about competing than it is worrying about that DM that you get. If you make yourself faster, if you make yourself more explosive, you're going to have a legitimate recruiting process moving forward. If you get so stressed out and worried about, I need DMs, I need to get that camp graphic, I need to get that cool digital graphic that they send one of 5,000 kids, you're going to deviate from getting bigger, faster, stronger. And there are still windows coming up that are more legitimate. And it comes down to how fast and explosive you are. I heard a high school coach talk about it this week. He's never sat across from a college coach and said, you know what, he's just too fast. No one's ever said that. Get faster, get more explosive, compete to do all those things, and you'll really help your recruiting process. Those 4 things can drastically change your entire process for the next year.
Exactly. And when you sit down with these class 2026 athletes, I'm imagining that first step of getting all that information in an easy to access place for those coaches, especially on the social media side of things. And you don't have to get into the nitty gritty of it, but I'm assuming that outward facing front on your social media platforms, that has to be a really polished landing page.
No, it is, but it really also comes down to just pinning your most recent highlight video to your profile, right? So yes, I want to make sure that my name is accessible. I don't want to have like D Fodro, 27 or whatever. Have it be Dan Fodrocy, and have your handle be something like at Crusaders class of 20, CO 2027 or whatever it may be. For me, it would have been 2001. Wow, that's a long time ago.
There you go.
Okay, but that's simple. You want to make sure that they can find you. You'd be surprised how hard sometimes it can be to find kids as far as just searching out video if they have a kind of a unique name. So keep that very simple, but pin your film to your page, especially on X. X is the most critical one. They just don't use the other sites in the same capacity. Kids aren't on Facebook anyways. Instagram is just kind of not used for this.
Yep.
I'm not sure how active the college coaches are on TikTok. It's on X, and it's a very swarmed site. It's kind of a very saturated market, but they can find you. It's a very easy search engine, but your film's on there. They find your name. They see that pinned video. They watch it. They could watch your film within 1 minute and know whether you're good enough to play for them or not. And that clarity, whether you sometimes want to hear if someone realizes you're not good enough. I know it's a kick in the stomach sometimes, but that clarity can help you find out the ones that are interested in you. So pin that video to your handle, especially on X. Make sure they can find you with an easy name and just kind of allow the process to happen, but compete. Go get faster tomorrow.
And the last question that I had regarding that information, when do you decide, I guess, with any potential or prospective student athlete going to the college level, that it's time to go out and be proactive and start to reach out to these coaches, whether that's targeted emailing or DMs and those kind of things? Because like you said, getting in the weight room, shoring up all your quote unquote weaknesses as opposed to just mass DMing and kind of prioritizing that is certainly important. Does there come a time where some of those targeted messaging, come to the forefront?
After junior year, so class of 2026, you're in the mix. And I try to tell the class of 2027, 2028, and even incoming class of 2029, be careful with that now because your time is coming. Class of 2026 is in the mix. 2027 is almost stepping through the door. They're getting ready. Their class of 2027 is just filling out questionnaires. There might be some activity, but you don't need to push the envelope too hard because in about 4 or 5 months, you're in the mix.
Yep.
So you have to understand that after your junior year, it does become time to do that business of recruiting. And I tell people at the young ages all the time, I know it's hard in this day and age not to. FOMO, right? I totally get it. Keeping up with the Joneses. You want to be in the mix. You see other kids all over the country getting offers as freshmen. I know that sometimes is hard to not want to dive into it, but that time is coming. So the more relaxed you can be from the business of recruiting early, the better you can be prepared for it and the more you can attack it efficiently. That is the players and families that I've helped navigate it. That's the best process, but it is hard not to keep up with the Joneses. I totally understand that. Junior year finishes and you decide, yep, I want to play at the next level. You got to get in the mix. You got to get in the trenches. You got to be reaching out to coaches. You got to be putting in the effort as well. It's not just sit back and kick your heels up anymore. So after junior year, you are in the mix. So class of 2026 is right in the hotbed right now.
Absolutely. Now to shift it over from the national recruiting scene, we've got a group of guys that have finalized their recruiting process, and now it's time for a deep dive into the next generation of playmakers going to play for the Blugolds at Eau Claire, sponsored by AREN Consulting. Visit getaren.com to see how AREN can enhance your recruiting efforts today. Let's talk about some of these Blugolds. And I watched the film on these guys, and I will certainly come out here and say I was greatly impressed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really fired up about what's going on up at UWEC. I was fortunate enough to be up there and watch a camp and then actually speak with the staff at a camp that they held and talk to some parents and educate them on the process. Impressive place. Impressive town, first off. Like it really felt like one of your college towns.
Yeah.
A little different than what I was familiar. Everyone has a different fit, right? But I was like, whoa, this is a really cool place. Unbelievable facilities.
Oh, yeah.
The staff is engaged. Like you're at this camp and you would think it was like getting ready for our rivalry game on a Tuesday practice. And that's a cool trait, right? A lot of times these coaches are like, oh, I got to be at this camp. And I know there's not going to be a lot of prospects. They were in the mix. So these kids that we're going to talk about right now, like they're stepping into an environment where you better get your mind right. Because I think they're going to be ready. The coaching staff, you're seeing this place grow. First kid I want to talk a little bit about is Brad Filippis out of Kenosha Indian Trail. Now I have a little bit of knowledge out of Brad because I got a chance to know his dad. I got a chance to follow his process by working with Coach Hoffman and their program. The thing that really kind of stands out about Brad, he's like the general out on the field out there. You know, there's definitely some growth that needs to happen, especially with his ability to get a little bit better foot speed, a little bit more explosive in the lower body. But that's probably going to change the trajectory of how quickly he can play because he's got all the feels of just how to navigate out there on the field, right? And in the back end, especially in all the quarters coverage that a lot of people will play, you know, if maybe UWEC, the Blugolds, ask him to maybe even play some cover 3 or cover 2, I think he can handle it. I don't think the schematics are going to be the challenge for him. And when you're talking about that kind of a transitional player, Just comes down to how much does he aggressively attack that strength and conditioning program with the Blugold. So if he does, this is a kid that's got a chance to get out on the field pretty quick, because I think he's a ball playing fool that feels the game. And those kids, a lot of times, are the ones who step in and play pretty early.
Yeah, he has a knack for being at the right place at the right time, or I guess for quarterbacks to be the opposite. But when he comes downhill and makes a lot of those plays, he's spilling plays out and making them extend horizontally as opposed to vertically, and really stretching out those plays, making tackles. And of course, it's a highlight reel, but you're not seeing anyone get out of him when he gets down there and gets his hands on guys. So very impressive tape there from Brad. But let's stay on the defensive side of the ball, go down to the D-line unit. What can you tell me about Thomas?
Well, Thomas Medley out of Nathan Hale, right down here in southeast Wisconsin. Pretty impressive flash player. And here's what I mean by that. There is some massive growth that needs to happen, but there is some potential flash that you see. First and foremost, first step, getting off the ball, and he has an ability to bend. Now, usually when you're talking about that, you're talking about that at players going at the highest of levels, right? Because bending and first step can get you a big sack on third down, which we know how much that can change the game. It's just a reality. Can also make you a good run stopper. Thomas has got to throw his hands better. So I'm not kidding you. If I was on the Blugold staff, I would literally just throw a medicine ball at him for 2 straight hours. Get those hands out. And I'm getting out of the blocks, and those hands are coming, because in the run game, you see it. Players get into them. That cannot happen at the next level. Not in the WEAC. You're playing against Platteville. You're playing against Stout. You're going up against Whitewater. He gets his hands engaged both in the run game and the pass game because of his ability to bend, because of that first step, and a pretty good frame, by the way. You're talking about a wild player, but it's got to happen. Okay, this is, again, we talked on in some of our other podcasts where we looked at players going to the GLIAC in different places. We talked about fence players. He's kind of a fence player for me, where it's a little bit like, whoa, on the other side. These are the players that you want to get, but he's got to throw his hands better. I know it sounds super simple, but it's going to make all the difference in the world, in his ability and his impact in the WEAC playing for the Blugolds. Holy mackerel. I'm really excited to see him grow.
Absolutely. And a playmaker on the other side of the ball, back to the outside, got a wide receiver joining the mix there out of Madison Memorial.
Yeah, Ty Aparico from Madison Memorial. What's really interesting about Ty, and I thought this was a really good tell, he plays both inside and outside on his highlight film. That tells you a lot about what the program at Madison Memorial thinks about just his skill set to play. You need to have vision. You need to understand the game to be able to do that. It's not as easy as people think. Right now, he's got to get faster, because I think there's a little bit of an ability to grow with his foot speed, which can bring another element into maybe him carrying the ball. So now I play inside, I play outside. I give the Blugolds offense an ability to kind of like move me around. I can start out wide, and I can come in and I can take a jet sweep. Okay, I can be a player that can also be engaged in RPOs when I come in on that motion and I burst back out. A lot of flexibility. You see it with his vision. You see it with his ability to kind of be very technical in how he plays, but there's a chance for him to get faster. And that's what you see. So again, a little bit like Brad, if he steps in and really attacks that strength and conditioning program with the Blugolds, again, another player that's going to find himself making big catches at big times, because that's what I see on film. A player that can move around all over the place. Those guys were probably just like, let's just get him out there. Let's put him in position. He's going to lead this team. And I'm really excited to see him kind of take that next step. Will he get faster? Will he be more explosive? I know the coaching staff up at UWC is excited to see that too, but I'm even excited myself to see, does he take that next step from an explosiveness standpoint? Because it's all fundamentally set up for him.
Yeah, it seems like a very much of a utility player that can go and fit into a lot of different schemes and is willing to do what the coach asks of him. And you talk about utility. Let's talk about this offensive lineman. I know you had highlighted that feels like he could fill in across the board. And for an underclassman coming into the college level, to be that sixth guy, the one that kind of fills in the, the gap in the wall, so to speak, that can be a very valuable position for underclassmen. Tell me about Mason.
Yeah, Mason Werfel out of Menasha going up, obviously, to the Blugolds. What I kind of saw was almost a 4-position player. Again, I'm not sure if he can snap. I got to see players snap before I can say he's a 5-position player on the offensive line. But this is a kid that's got a tackle or guard ability to him, and mostly it's because of his physicality. Like, this is kind of a kid that just wants to go out there and hit people, right? But I think he's limited in his mobility to say, I'm just going to plop him down at left or right tackle, and he's going to be able to live out on an island. Not sure I see that yet. So that's why I'm really excited to see Mason grow and develop. And, we've talked a little bit about fence players. Listen, offensive linemen, they're never fence players because you need so many of them. So let's say if we recruit you, you're going to find a way to play. You're going to find a way out on that field. And again, I think in any one of those 4 positions, but he's like just trying to go out there and smash people. He's trying to go out there and get to the second level and use that physicality. That's an impressive trait. There's even a clip on there, and I can tell the officials kind of telling him to take it easy. He wasn't doing anything past the whistle, but you could tell they knew this is a player that pushes that line. That's what you want. If I'm the Blugolds old line coach, I'm like, let's do this. This is the kind of guy that I can work with. Will his mobility put him in position to play out on the edge at one of the tackles? That to me is the big question. I would probably personally move him inside, let him get, kind of his feel, get his feet wet a little bit at guard. And then as he grows, as he kind of gains that power in his lower body and some better mobility, especially in his midsection, I think he can play outside. I think he can move to one of those islands and be pretty dominant because the physicality's there. He's not afraid to punch. He's not afraid to scrap. Again, this is another kid that could find himself playing pretty early, and that's really exciting. And if I'm that coaching staff, I'm trying to find like 20 of these guys.
Yeah.
So excited for Mason. Really going to be a kind of a cool addition to that program. Probably find himself out there on the field pretty early.
Yeah, now to back out to more of a holistic view, you talk about some of the big pieces of this signing class for the Blugolds, and you pair that with a coaching staff that seems to be reinvigorated with a lot of energy going in the right direction, and a facility that is one of the most premier at the level of Division III, I think, in small school football. When you look at their setup, there are not many across the country that compare to that. Now, all of that being said, you can't go away from the fact that they really struggled in league play last year. How are they planning? I know you've got some connections to the program now. What's the level of optimism like that they can turn that around in a semi-short time span?
Well, I'm going to be honest. I'm always for the players, but this is a coaching staff that kind of got me going.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm all for the players. I love everything that's going on in this day and age with player freedom, but this is a coaching staff that you want to play for. Again, I talked about what they did at the camp, but the one thing that was really interesting, I'm up there talking to Coach Erickson, unbelievable facilities, beautiful place. He kept talking about how tough they need to be. You just said it. To be able to play in this league, to go up against the programs you're going in and week out, you're not going to be able to live and die in that indoor facility. It's awesome. It's a beautiful training tool. It's a great opportunity for those kids to see we have an unbelievable facility throughout the year, but we better be tough. And finding kids like Mason that just want to go out there and battle, finding projections like Thomas, who's going to go out there and kind of take that next step and be an elite athlete. You got to be out on that field. You got to be working the technique. You got to be ready for rain, snow, sleet, sun, everything. You got to be like the post office, right? Whatever it's going to take. Because when we go out there and we line up against Whitewater, it ain't going to be in that indoor. And that's what Coach Erickson was talking about. And I'm standing there. I'm like, I'm about to give an educational presentation to parents. And I'm like, I want to go run these drills, Coach. This is awesome. So I was very impressed with their demeanor. Energy is fair. I like what you're talking about, but demeanor. The game is still won by toughness. Okay. And if you look at every level of football, you see it with Ferris State over in the Division II ranks. I'm going to be honest. Ohio State was one of the toughest teams in the league, at least after that Michigan loss. And you think about the teams like North Central is extremely tough and physical. You can't get overshrouded by how nice those facilities are. So I'm speaking to the players. Trust your coaches, listen to that commitment. Because I'm telling you, they have the energy, but they've got the demeanor to make you guys what it's going to take to be competitive in that league. So I'm very optimistic from what they believe. Now it's about putting it all together. Players, coaches in unison. It's there. Go attack this thing and have at it, because there is an element of toughness. I know that they're working to push, and to win in that league, you better be tough. So I'm excited to kind of see where they start taking this thing.
Likewise, there's more parity in that conference now than maybe ever before. You talk about some of the predominant powers coming out of that conference, and Whitewater comes to mind immediately, lacrosse as of late, but the way Platteville surged up to the top this year, and even you look at some of those teams that were middle of the road in the Oshkosh and Stout, are a bounce of the ball here and there away from potentially being in, at the top of the conference. So right now, it really feels like there is a window where anyone can really capitalize on that, but it is so difficult because of that same fact.
But that's what you want, Kobe. I mean, any true competitor wants that. There was a time, and I was part of it in my career, where it was kind of two programs in the GLIAC, right? It was us and Grand Valley. This is early 2000s. Now it's kind of Ferris and Grand Valley, and I'm always advocating for some of those programs to raise their level. Tech's always kind of right there. Saginaw Valley's always right there. You kind of want this. You want this where it's like you show up, and if you play your best game, you got a really good chance to win. So I give that entire league, all the way from the commissioner on down, a lot of credit for whatever they've done to create this, whether it's, you want to use the word parity. You got some competitive coaches in there. And I say to people all the time, and again, I work with families all over the country, And I'm like, perception isn't always reality, but the truth of the matter is competitiveness and battling is what you want. And if you want to go see a game where there's 20,000 people out there, go get tickets for the Whitewater lacrosse game next year.
Yeah.
Right. And this is crazy, the things that you're hearing and what they're able to do. And then Platteville coming out and going into the playoffs. This is exactly what you want to be a part of. I think the high school coaches in this state deserve a lot of credit. And I saw someone post about another state where they're referencing all the players that are going on to college. And they said it's a testament to the players. And I kind of chimed in. I said, it's also a testament to the coaches and what they're developing. You're putting these kids in position to go take advantage of an opportunity, and then they're national contenders. You don't do that by just trotting them out for 4 years, throw the ball out, do a couple of drills. The high school coaches in this state and surrounding states, Eau Claire recruits Minnesota real well. They're taking these kids, they're making them tough, they're developing them, they're putting them in a position to be battlers. It's everything that you want from college football. So I give that entire league a lot of credit, and I'm excited to follow them.
Absolutely. As am I. And that's it for this episode of the D1 Rejects Recruiting Report. Join us for episode 2 as we discuss the class of 2027 checklist. Once again, make sure to check out getaren.com to see how AREN can enhance your recruiting efforts today. Coach, appreciate you joining in.
Always fun. Can't wait.
Absolutely. I'll see you. Have a good night.